طيب الحمد لله على إحسانه وشكر له على بره وامتنانه وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله تعظيما لشأنه وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله الداعي إلى رضوانه. أما بعد, continuing our study of Fiqh Seerah, we have a few issues that we want to touch on in regard to the last event or happening that we talked about, which was the kind of building of the Kaaba and that which is related to it. The first point I want to mention here is there's benefits that we've taken from that which has preceded, fine. You might find that some of those benefits repeat themselves. An example of that is from the benefits that we took in the building of the Kaaba, as well as the Prophet ﷺ's marriage to Khadija. And other than that is the Prophet ﷺ's reliability. His reliability, as well as what? His amana, the fact that he's recognized, known, and prominent amongst his community. Right? And we've mentioned some of these types of benefits again and again. I want us to understand why we repeat certain benefits, even though it's the same benefit, why we repeat it. The reason we repeat these benefits, because they are the most firm and strongest of evidences of validation for us with regards to the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is everyone with me? And just as we've mentioned this point before, which is that when you see these small parts and points in regard to the Prophet's seerah, whether it be that which came before his prophethood والسلام, or that which came after, not one of us comes generally and says, well, that point is the reason I believe, that small point and snapshot of the seerah, that's the reason I believe. Is everyone with me? That's the foundation of his what? His aqidah. Fine. So what we say in regard to this is that the isma, the infallibility of a Muslim's aqidah, of a Muslim's belief, of a Muslim's faith, it comes from when we take everything together and not when we take snapshots. Is everyone with me? And naturally this is in regards to the person looking, the onlooker, the believer, as him now building his faith, building his aqidah. It comes from what? When he takes it, the infallibility of such comes from when he looks at something like seerah as a whole, and not when he just looks at one or two things. Is everyone with me? When he looks at an overview of what? This is what gives you a firm foundation. And this is, again, just to highlight this point, this is in regards to the person looking. Of course, there are certain snapshots which are enough. In and of themselves, they are enough if we knew the reality of said snapshot. Is that with certain events that we've taken, that event on its own is enough. If we were to know the what? The reality of such event. Is everyone with me? However, us being human and having shortcomings, the way we gain our firmness in our belief is what? You take it as a whole. Fine? So you take the Prophet's reliability with what? The historical things that we've spoken about, with what? The unexplainable things that we've spoken about, etc., etc., with his character, with this, with that which he came with, alayhi salatu wasalam. And as we go, it's going to build and build and build. So if we know that the infallibility of our beliefs comes from what? Comes from all of the snapshots chained together and put together, then the more snapshots you have, the stronger your foundation is. Does everyone understand this point? The more of those small portions you take, i.e., the more we repeat certain points also, it just makes the point hit home harder. Is everyone with me? Fine? It ties all together and makes it more firmer. So with regards to what we spoke about in the last lesson, in regard to the Prophet, the building of the Kaaba, his participation in such, or the renovation of the Kaaba, and the Prophet's participation in such, we benefit two main things. We benefited two main things. Two very important matters. The first is what? The Prophet's amana, meaning his reliability, his trustworthiness, his loyalty, his faithfulness. Fine? And all of the prophets and messengers, alayhi salam, were known to what? To have this. All of them were known to have this. Rather, Allah tells us on the tongues of more than one of the prophets, Inni lakum rasulun ameen. In the Quran, it comes from more than one prophet saying it. There's more than one place in the Quran where Allah tells us, they told their people what? Inni lakum rasulun ameen. Verily I am to you, to their people, a trustworthy, a prophet, a messenger who is trustworthy, who has aman. Fine? Allah told us this with regards to Salih, with regards to Lut, with regards to Nuh, with regards to Shu'aib. They all said this to what? To their people. What's funny here is, this verse here, Allah tells us that all of these prophets, alayhi said this to their people. It doesn't come in the Quran, it comes one after the other. Nuh said it, and then Lut said it, and then the Prophet ﷺ, it's not said in the Quran that he said this to his people. It's not said in the Quran, Allah doesn't mention that he made this statement to his people, Inni lakum rasulun ameen, like the other prophets. Is everyone with me? What the scholars mention is here, from the wisdoms that it's not mentioned regarding the Prophet here, that he said it, is because the disbelievers themselves, they were the ones who initiated this. They were the ones who knew. They were the ones who gave him the nickname, alayhi salam, of what? Of being al-Amin, of being trustworthy. Is everyone with me? And for this reason, there wasn't a need to mention, for the Prophet to mention himself such a statement. And that's why it doesn't come in the Quran. Does everyone understand this point? Now, because the person might find it strange how Allah tells us that all of these prophets now have gone to their people and said the same statement. They've all gone to their people and said, Musa, fine. All of these prophets have said what? I'm a trustworthy, truthful, honest, reliable, loyal prophet to you, messenger of Allah that has come to you. But it's not mentioned about Muhammad alayhi salatu. Is everyone with me? And we said the wisdom for this is what? That this was already known to them. This was already known to them. Now, what we mean by amana, what we mean by trustworthiness here, is all of the prophets and messengers were trustworthy, number one, with regards to the rights of the people. Between their transactions and their engagement with their communities, with Bani Adam, with humankind, were what? Trustworthy, reliable, loyal, and faithful. And the second thing it means is what? Is in regard to the right of Allah Azza wa Jal, they were also trustworthy, loyal, faithful, and reliable. What do we mean by this? In regards to the conveying of the message. When we say they were trustworthy in regards to the rights of the people, as well as in regard to the rights of Allah, mean they were trustworthy in regards to that which we commonly know as in regards to transactions and business and other than that. And when we say in the rights of Allah, in regard to the rights of Allah, we mean in the conveying of the messenger that Allah Azza wa Jal has entrusted him with. That's the first thing we benefit from what we talked about in the last lesson. The second thing that we benefit is what is, and we mentioned this already, but just to summarize it, is what? The participation and engagement and pleasure that his community had with him in what we talked about last lesson. They're with me, those two things. Fine. Rather, it's going to come that Khadija, radiallahu anha, when the Prophet ﷺ went to her after seeing what he saw on the horizon, and he said, Zammiluni, Zammiluni, or Dathiruni, Dathiruni, she said to him, what? He thought it was some kind of, he didn't know what he felt fearful that something might happen to him. Khadija reassured him. And what she said? She said, never. She said, never, by Allah, Allah will never disgrace you. And she mentioned things. She said, Allah will never disgrace you. Why? Because you keep good relations with your kin. You tell the truth. You help the poor, the destitute. You honor your guests. Fine? You assist those who, those afflicted by calamities. Fine? This statement is very powerful. This statement that the wife of the Prophet ﷺ said is very powerful. Why? Because it shows us the positive contribution that the Prophet ﷺ had on his society, on his community. Fine? To the point that even after his prophethood, so this shows the level of engagement that the Prophet ﷺ had, fine, on all levels of society. To the point that after his prophethood, during the migration, when the Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina, we are all aware he left behind Ali. He left behind Ali, and Ali stayed in the Prophet ﷺ's bed, so that it would be as if the Prophet ﷺ was in his bed. Is everyone with me? So he left Ali to stay the night in his bed, that the night that they made the move. One of the reasons he left Ali behind while he went to Medina with Abu Bakr, one of the reasons is what? So that Ali could what? Return and fulfill any outstanding trusts. Because people would leave things with the Prophet ﷺ to look after and things like this. So anything that was outstanding, he left Ali in charge of that before he what? Because he's not going to come back to Mecca. So any outstanding affairs in Mecca, he left that to Ali to take care of. Is there any questions in regard to anything that was just said before we move on? طيب. We move on to what? No. We're moving on to what generally people who author within the Seerah, they have a slot before talking about the initiation of the Prophet's prophethood. When we say initiation of the Prophet's prophethood, we mean what? The actual revelation coming down to him becoming a prophet. Fine. Before this, generally people who author within the Seerah mention a chapter where they gather together what we mentioned before from things that are like introductory happenings that lead up to the prophethood. And from this, for example, they mention ways that the Prophet was protected from falling into certain affairs, whether it be shirk, whether it be lowly character and things like this. Allah protected him from this. So they mentioned this in like a chapter before going into the initiation of the prophethood. And there's no doubt that great affairs, fine, huge events that happen throughout history, they are preceded by almost indications, by introductions, by signs that pave the way for this big event, pave the way for this great happening. Is everyone with me? With regard to the Prophet ﷺ, there's mentioned many glad tidings, you could call them prophecies, indications, signs, that have come prior to his what? To his prophethood, whether they be in the Quran. When I say they're in the Quran, meaning obviously the Quran has come after, but things that were mentioned in the Quran about prior glad tidings. In the Sunnah, and again, when we say in the Sunnah, we mean what? Things that have come in the Sunnah that tell us about these type of indications. Likewise, well known amongst the Arabs, and likewise that have come in the books of the people of Ahlul Kitab, the books of the Jews and the Christians, the Torah and the Injil. As for the books prior to the Quran, meaning the Bible and the Torah, then within them is glad tidings of the Prophet ﷺ. Within them is glad tidings of the cominghood of Muhammad ﷺ. Is everyone with me? And even till today, you find some of these indications and things which indicate towards his prophethood. Is everyone with me? Now, obviously, these indications, those people of said book will have what? They will have ways to distort the meaning of something or say it doesn't mean this or it doesn't mean that, rather it means X, Y, and Z. Fine? So because of this, and the reason they'll say this is what? To dismiss the prophethood of Muhammad ﷺ. So with regard to this, we're going to start with what? We're going to mention those things which prove to us, they prove to us that there were glad tidings about the Prophet ﷺ in the books of those before us, of the Christians and the Jews, without going to their books. There's other things that we can look at that prove this to us with clear and solid, something that doesn't leave any doubt, Right? So there's a couple stories that we can mention in regard to this. There's many, fine, but I've just got a couple for us to think about. The first is what? The story of the Islam of Salman al-Farisi. Salman al-Farisi. We've all heard this name, right? Salman al-Farisi. Fine, companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They nickname him Al-Bahith an al-Haq. That's what they nickname him. Salman al-Farisi is nicknamed as the Al-Bahith an al-Haq, the truth seeker. The truth seeker. And the story with regards to Salman al-Farisi is truly amazing. Fine. And there's many virtues that are mentioned about Salman al-Farisi also. There's many virtues that are mentioned in regards to Salman al-Farisi. It's mentioned that they were sat around with the Prophet ﷺ one time. And the Prophet ﷺ said regarding Salman, he said, لو كان الإيمان عند الثريا لناله رجال من هؤلاء. That if Iman, if faith, if Islam was in space, was in the galaxies, then there would verily be men from amongst us who could what? Who would attain such. Like they would, by their indicating to what? Their persistence, their want, their desire to seek the truth, to follow that which is correct. Is everyone with me? I.e., they would have followed it to what? Even if it took them out of space. Is everyone with me? And there's other things that we can mention. Come into the story of the Islam of Salman al-Farisi. The story of Salman al-Farisi, it comes in a narration in a book compiled by Al-Imam Ahmed, one of the 4 Imams, and the book is called Musnad, the Musnad of Al-Imam Ahmed, and the story is narrated by Ibn Abbas. Is everyone with me? So Salman al-Farisi now, he used to live with his father, and he was from the most beloved of his children to his father. And his father was what? A fire worshipper. His father was what they call Majusi, a fire worshipper, a pagan. Fine? And so he used to worship fire. He used to worship fire. Rather, he would stick to the fire. They would light the fire in the house and he would worship this fire. He wouldn't leave the side of this fire. And he wouldn't let this fire go out. They didn't want to let the fire go out. And this is from the strange affairs as well, that you find people that worship things that they create. Is everyone with me? This is from the very, very strange matters that you find, even at the time of Nuh, for example, the idols, the statues and things like this. A person now worships that which what? Their own hands have created. Which means they themselves have established with certainty that they can't benefit or harm. Because they're the ones that bring it into what? Into existence. Is everyone with me? Come back to it. So he was what? He would stick to the fire and he wouldn't let it go out. And so he sent Salman to like a garden of sorts that he had to take care of some of the affairs with regards to it. So he sent him on a job. Fine. And as Salman went on this job, he passed by a church. He passed by a church and he could hear the voices of the people in the church. And now obviously Salman didn't know much about Christianity, he didn't know much about these other religions. Fine. And so he's intrigued, he's curious. Fine. And so he went on his way to now fulfill these deeds for his father. He's gone into this what? He's gone into this church. He's gone into this church and he's seen the way that the Christians pray. And he said what? He said, هذا والله خير من الدين الذي نحن عليه. He said, he swore by Allah that this worship that he's seeing and this religion that he's seeing, the way they're worshipping, this is better than the religion that we're upon. This is better than the religion that we're upon. So much so that he sat watching the Christians worship until a big part of the day went by. And he didn't finish the work. He didn't even do the work that his father, the deeds that his father sent him to fulfill. Fine. And so he asked someone, how do I connect with this religion? And so they indicated him towards Sham, which is like the Levant or the region of like Syria. They said, it's over there, you'll find it. And so he came back to his father, and obviously his father's worried now, and he's even sent people behind him looking for him. And so he's explained to him what he saw. And he explained to him that he's convinced He has conviction that this religion, no, this religion is better than what? Is better than what we do. Is better than fire worshipping. So his dad actually what? He panicked. He panicked, and so he what? He tied him. He restricted him. Fine, out of fear that he's gonna follow something else, etc. Right? What happened is Salman sent out looking for any caravan that came for business and is gonna go back to Sham. He's gonna go back to this place because he wants to what? He wants to find this religion that he sees better than that which they're upon. So he hears news of a caravan that's going back, and he manages to get loose from his restrictions. Fine. And so he goes with them to Sham. He goes with his caravan to Sham. And when he's in Sham, he asks the people of Sham, who's the best from amongst the Christians that you can point me towards? And so they pointed to him towards one church. Fine. And so he went to this church, and the priest figures, he said, I'm going to stay, serve you, be of service to you, and so I can learn this religion. And so he stayed there for a period of time, and he learned the religion, and he served, and he helped out with matters in the church. He noticed now, this is now where the story starts to take momentum. When he's in his church, he noticed that one of the head figures, the leading figures of the church, he used to always tell people to give sadaqah. He always used to tell people to what? Give to charity, give to charity. It's fine. And then what did he used to do? He used to keep it for himself. He used to store it for himself. And he didn't used to give any to the poor. And so the time came where this leading figure of the church passed away. And when he passed away, obviously they did like their funeral preparations. Fine. And Salman exposed him. And he said, this is a man this is not a good man. This is an evil man. And he explained to them. And they didn't believe him, of course, because why? He's a leading figure in the church. And so he told them, I'll show you where he's buried the wealth that he took. And so he showed them where the wealth was, and they found the wealth, and he was exposed. Is everyone with me? They dug up like a treasure. Fine. Now that man's passed away, and someone's taken his place. In the same church, someone's taken his place. That someone who took his place, Salman found the same contentment, the same pleasure in the way he was worshipping, the way his character was, that he found in what? When he went into the first church before he left. He found that same feeling. And so he stayed and he learned from that man. Fine? And so that would please him. He had the zuhd, he was ascetic. Fine? He didn't have need for the dunya and things like this. Fine? The way he prayed. So anyway, this man now has reached what? Death has approached him. This now new leading figure of the church, death has approached him. And so when he's in that state of nearing his death, fine, nearing his end, Salman's asked him for an advice. Because he said, what? I came to you to learn this religion. I came to you, what? To benefit from you, etc. And now what? You're going to go point me towards someone like you. Point me to someone like you that I can do the same with. And a man said that I don't know anyone. He said, Wallahi, I don't know anyone today who's upon what I'm on. I don't know anyone who's upon what I'm on. Rather, the people have been destroyed. They've changed this religion. Fine? And they've left most of what we used to be upon. Except one man that I know of in Mosul. In Mosul. Mosul, bear in mind, guys, now, Mosul is in Iraq. So he's already traveled from where? Salman al-Farisi to Sham, Syria. Now he's going to go where? Iraq, to Mosul. So he made his journey to Mosul. Fine. Which is, bear in mind, there's no cars at this time. There's no to travel. This is travel by either walking or by riding beasts. Is everyone with me? So he's gone to Mosul, and he stayed with this man that he's been showed to. In the same manner, he found the same contentment and pleasure that the second man gave him from his worship and etc. and his asceticism, fine? And the same thing happened. Death approached this man. Death approached this man, and the same thing happened. He asked him for an advice. And he said the same thing, I don't know of anyone that's upon what we used to be upon, fine? Except one other person, fine? In a place called, I think they call it Nasibain or Nasibin, fine? So he went to him. Same thing. Death approached him. He advised him with a man in a place called Amuriya. And so Salman's gone to him. How many times has he moved now? He's moved again and again and again, from place to place to place. And, when this man now, I believe or not, the fifth guy, Death approached him, he said, I don't know anyone for you. Fine? He said, I don't know anyone for you. لكن قد أظلك زمان نبي هو مبعوث بدين إبراهيم. And then he mentioned where he is. He said, what? However, time has left for you a prophet who has been sent forth upon the same religion as Ibrahim. And he said, he's in the land of so and so, and he described the description of what he described. For example, the two sides of Medina. He described the land having the nakhla, the palm tree, the date palm. And so he gave a description of the ard which fits the description of Al-Medina. Fine. He said, with regards to this prophet that's sent, after describing the land, he said, what? He said, bihi alamat la takhfa. He said, this messenger, this prophet that's been sent forth, there's signs with regards to him that aren't hidden. There's signs that are clear. Is everyone with me? What are those signs? From those signs he mentioned, he takes from what? He'll accept a gift. He'll take wealth in the form of a gift, but he won't take wealth in the form of charity. He doesn't take from the charity. Charity that's given, he doesn't take from it. As for if it's given as a gift, he'll take it. He said, بين كتفيه, between his two shoulders is what? Is the khatam of nubuwwah, is the seal of the prophets. He said, فَإِنِ اسْتَطَعْتَ أَن تَلْحَقَ بِتِلْكَ الْبِلَادِ فَافْعَلْ. He said, if you have the ability and you are able to reach said place, that part of the world, then do so. And so the story is very long now. The story is very long after this. And I advise you all to look into the story of Salman al-Farisi. It goes deeper than this. Fine. The story is very long of how he embarks on this journey, and then he ends up getting what? Deceived by a passing caravan who sell him as a what? They sell him as a slave. Even though he's a free man, they sell him as he's a slave. Even though this was the case, where did he get sold as a slave to? He ended up where? In Medina. And he ended up between the Prophet's hands. He ended up between the Prophet's hands, والسلام, and he took his Islam, and he's from the noble companions. I advise you to read the story, and what this story benefits us is what? How if a person's sincere and they want the truth, Allah will guide you towards that which is correct. Allah will guide you towards that which is correct. The reason we mentioned this story is why? Because of the statements of the leaders of those churches. The statements of the leaders of those churches. I don't even need to go to now the Bible or the Torah and say Muhammad is mentioned in here, fine, and look at this statement here, fine, even though that's there, fine, because this proves to me that the signs and indications of this prophet that was to come were there, and those indications did come. Is everyone with me? Those indications did come, and the people of the book were aware of those indications. Based upon what? The statement of the leaders of the people of the book. Is everyone with me? From those stories is what? So now we're leaving the story of Salman al-Farisi. We've took what we want from it. From those stories is the story of Hercules. Fine? When the Prophet ﷺ sent him a letter, he sent a letter to him. Very well known, the story of this. He sent a letter to him, and when he received this letter, this leader, he called a translator to translate to him. Fine? And he called one from amongst the Muslims who was the closest in lineage to the Prophet ﷺ. And he asked him questions. He spoke to this person who has close relations to the Prophet ﷺ, and he got the translator to translate. And so he asked him certain questions. Fine, he spoke to Abu Sufyan. And so he answered all these questions that he had, and Abu Sufyan described the situation of the Prophet ﷺ, the character of the Prophet ﷺ, and things like this. He described his da'wah and other than that. Fine. This leader said what? He said, if what you're saying is true, who you've described, Muhammad ﷺ, he will possess, he will take over the very place of my feet, the very place that my 2 feet are standing on. And he said, what? وَقَدْ كُنْتُ أَعْلَمُ أَنَّهُ خَارِجٌ. And I knew that there was a prophet coming. I used to know that there was a prophet coming. وَلَمْ أَكُنْ أَظُنْ أَنَّهُ مِنْكُمْ. However, I didn't perceive that he would come from your people, that he would come from your land, that he would come from your area of the world, that he would come from the Arabs. Is everyone with me? And look at this last bit. He said, وَلَوْ كُنْتُ عِنْدَهُ. And if I was with him now, لَغَسَلْتُ قَدَمَ. This is the leader of an empire, yeah? He said, if I was with him now, I would have washed his feet. Bear in mind, leaders, especially at that time, emperors were known for what? Kings. They were known for might. They were known for furiosity. They were known for what? Fine. It would be a very scary place, someone to enter upon a king in his palace. Is everyone with me? And this same individual, this same leader that's like these other emperors and whatnot is saying, what? If he was with me, I would have washed his feet. Fine. And these are authentic narrations in Al-Bukhari and Muslim, the 2 most authentic compilations after the Quran. Fine. And even that story is beneficial because we didn't mention the descriptions that were given by Abu Sufyan about the Prophet ﷺ. The point we want to take from this again is what? He said he knew that a prophet was coming. He knew that a prophet was coming. He didn't know it was coming from your area. Therefore, he again proved to us that the people, and this is again in a different part of the world than Salman al-Farisi, in a different part of the world, the people of the book in that place also, they knew and they were aware of someone to come. Taib, let's go with another one. The Islam of Waraqah ibn Nawfal, the relative of Khadija. And if you want, you can put together with this what we talk about Buhaira, the monk, even though we said the authenticity of that, which is, we mentioned this, regarding the authenticity of the story of Buhaira. But if you take it as authentic, you can link it with this because they're both monks. Fine? But we're talking here about what? More specifically, the Islam of Waraqah ibn Nawfal. Fine? Because here it becomes clear to us the level that some of the disbelievers, some of what we call mustashriqun, find people that their job is to try and pick holes. We understand the level of what? The level of deception that they go through when they pick, fine, and choose. How they mention some things and don't mention some things. Because we mentioned the claim that what? That the Prophet ﷺ, we mentioned a claim, and it's a weak claim. We mentioned so many points with regard to the weakness of it. But we mentioned that some of them will say, for example, the stuff that the Prophet ﷺ came with, he got it from Waraqah. He got it from Waraqah. He got it from those books that came before and the people of the book, and then just added to it, etc. Fine? And we mentioned the weakness of this. Fine? You can add to this and say the same people that claim that, they don't mention to us that Waraqah became Muslim. Is everyone with me? We're mentioning so many angles about the weakness of this. Here we're adding to all those points that we mentioned. And we're saying that the same person that says this claim, he forgets that Waraqah became Muslim. But the person who says this, he's not going to mention this. He doesn't want to mention this. Fine? There comes narrations from the Prophet ﷺ where he says, لا تسبوا Waraqah. Don't curse Waraqah. فإني رأيت له جنة أو جنتين. Because I saw for him what? 1 or 2 Jannahs. I saw for him a garden or 2. Fine? Rather than another narration mentioned in the Mustadrak of Al-Hakim, mentioned in a book compiled by a scholar called Al-Hakim, and likewise in the compilation of Al-Tabarani, I think Bazar mentions it. It's mentioned that what? يُبْعَثُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أُمَّةً وَحْدًا, that he will be resurrected on Yawm al-Qiyamah as his own individual ummah. Fine. And it's mentioned even, and so these narrations that we just mentioned, some people might have an issue with their authenticity, etc. It's mentioned in Bukhari. It's mentioned in Bukhari what? The statement of Warqa himself. The statement himself. He said, وَإِنْ يُدْرِكْنِي يَوْمُكَ, that if it reaches me, if your day reaches me, حَيًّا وَأَنْ I'm alive, أَنْصُرْكَ نَصْرًا مُؤَزَّرًا. Warqa himself said what? That if your day reaches me and I'm alive, I will give victory to you. And I will help you, I will aid you. Fine. This victory now that Warqa is saying that he's going to give to the Prophet ﷺ is a victory based upon what? Is it a victory based upon the teachings of the Bible, the da'wah of the Bible and the Torah, or is it a victory based upon the teachings that the Prophet ﷺ come with? Is everyone with me? Based upon his deen, based upon Islam. Fine. And we're going to come back to this anyway. I mentioned this, inshallah, as things come. Time is very tight. We wanted to mention one more point again of Najashi. Just to summarize, the reason we're mentioning these points, we're drilling home the fact that indications and introductions and signs and prophecies, whatever you want to call it, have come and reached the people of the book. And they reached the people of the book. And before even going to what, and we're not going to actually go into detail in our lessons, but without going into detail with those things that are actually mentioned in the Bible today, or the Torah today, without that, we can prove such. We can leave no shadow of a doubt. It's something that a person can't refute. He can't dismiss. All of the things that we just mentioned show to you what? That there were remnants, that there were traces, that were indications, there were prophecies of what? Of a prophet to come. Fine. Has anyone got any questions before the link cuts out? Hi, inshallah. Excellent. If not, we'll leave it there. Bi-idhnillah, next lesson. Because I said this would be the last one, but I wanted to just try and reinforce a couple of points here. But bi-idhnillah, next lesson will be the last lesson before going into the initiation of the prophethood. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. If there's no questions, we'll leave it there. If anyone does have a question, just send me a message, inshallah. I'll try my best to reply. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. جزاكم الله خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.